Okay,
Okay.
I can make the minute.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to open the Somis Municipal Advisory Committee meeting for January the 13th. And next item on our agenda is the flag salute. I understand Jack is with us.
I have
Jack?
flag.
Yeah,
Doing the
I
flag.
can do that too. Hold on here. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right, everybody, please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
That always seems so odd, but in any event, the next item on our agenda is the election of a 2021 Municipal Advisory Chair and Vice Chair. Would anyone like to propose a motion for Chair?
I would like to propose a motion to nominate our current Pat Richards as the chair.
I
I'll
second
second
it.
that. Who's in here?
Shelley, you can't second, but
Okay.
Bob did.
Yes, Bob second.
Okay, can we have a motion for?
I will do a roll call. Jack Foss,
Aye.
Bob Fulkerson,
Aye.
Pat Richards.
Aye.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate our current vice chair as continuing vice chair.
That'd be me, I guess.
That's you, Bob.
Got to be one of the three of us, or one of the two of us.
Mr. Fulkerson.
Do I have a second from? I'll second it.
Pat was-
Yeah, you got to second it.
Okay. And a roll call. Jack Foss,
Aye.
Bob Fulkerson,
Aye.
Pat Richards.
Aye.
Done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You got a meeting November 4th. I'm sorry I could not make that. I was stuck in Idaho recovering from COVID. So initially I'm going up there for 2 weeks and ended up spending 5 weeks.
Oh.
So no fun. So
Yeah.
take care. We have the approval of this from the meeting of November 4. Any comments or changes to those meeting notes?
No additions and corrections here. I move that we accept them.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
I second it.
Okay. Jack, second.
All in favor?
Jack.
Aye.
Jack. Aye.
Aye.
Bob
Aye.
and Pat.
Aye.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't attending that meeting, but at this time, next item on our agenda is agenda review. Does anybody have any interests or concerns or suggestions on amending or adjusting the agenda?
Not I.
Okay.
Hearing none, we'll move forward. I understand that we have a CHP's officer, Lieutenant Key, that's available. Lieutenant, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me join the meeting. I look forward to meeting all of you in person once this is all over with. I became lieutenant of the Moore Park area effective on January 1st. And so I'll be here for a while. I live in Camarillo, so I'm a local resident, and also worked in the Ventura County area when I first started my career, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. I got the stats for that Somis for the fourth quarter of this year, and it looks like we had 8 collisions. 4 of them were on Somis Road, and another 4 of them were on the 118, and which actually entails a third of the collisions for this year. They all happened in the fourth quarter, it looks like. And there was a couple of DUI collisions and a couple of collisions from a turning movement, speed. There doesn't seem to be any particular violation that stood out in those collisions, but that's more or less a snapshot of what happened in the Somis area in the fourth quarter. Is there anything that I can do for the residents in that area? Any complaints that I can address? I'm sure the speed is always an issue right there on Somis Road through the town. So whatever your needs are, please let me know and we'll address them the best we can.
Lieutenant, have you had an opportunity to, I guess, review the Caltrans proposal for slope stability? I guess generally between Volcom and Sand Canyon. They're supposed to start sometime after the first of the year.
You know, I haven't had a chance to review that, but I certainly can. Do you know who
the contact is? I don't have it in front of me.
I can out.
I can, this is for the SR 34, right? Somis Road?
Yeah,
118.
Sorry, I was cutting in and out. I'm sorry, say that again?
It was the bank armoring that they're going to be doing Caltrans, but they'll have to have some sort of traffic control because they need to close one lane in order to work the crane to drop all of those rocks in.
Okay.
Depending on when they do it, it could be very inconvenient for a lot of people going through that section.
Yeah, I wasn't notified of anything yet, but I can look into that and see what's going on and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Key, this is Shelley Borden. In the fourth quarter, did they set up any speed patrols on Balcom Canyon? Were there any?
Not that I've been made aware of, no. So that would be probably something you would like to see.
Yes, if maybe in the first quarter they could set up some speed patrols. I know the last time they did it, more than half, I think, of the tickets that they issued were from residents. So I think it's beneficial to, I mean, yeah, that speed on Balcom Canyon is just like it is on the 118, but people certainly exceed it.
Yes, we can certainly address that. I will talk to our supervisors and coordinate some efforts in that area.
Great. And at one time they set up one of those portable speed signs that kind of flashed what the speed limit is and what people cross it, what they're doing, and it got taken away. There was talk about putting a permanent one at the corner of Stockton and Balcom, but okay. I don't know whatever happened to that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd probably be the county road, so we can ask them if they have moved forward with any of that and see what progress has been made.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Key. I appreciate you attending.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was good to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the position. Nice to have you there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it feels good to be back home. I've been working in West LA for the last year, and it has been a very challenging year, to say the least. So it's good to be back home.
Yeah, welcome home.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our information items, and I think the first one is 7A, which is Mary Oden. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Mary, you have some general information for us?
Mary, did you want me to share my screen with you?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay. Oh, hold on. I've done this before, I promise.
That's okay. It's been a while.
I'm gonna make you host. And then I think you can do your screen. You can now share your screen with everybody down at the bottom.
Let's see. Share screen. Come on.
There we go.
All right. Let's see if we can get this from the beginning and
I love it when it works.
right.
Yeah.
All right. We got it. Okay. So my name's Mary Otten, and I'm the general manager for the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. So what I thought I'd do is if you have questions throughout, please feel free to ask. I'll give you some general information here, and then if you have specific questions, feel free. So a little bit about the district. We're a recreation and park district, so all we do is recreation and parks. And we have 3 divisions. We have the administrative division, we have a recreation division, and a parks division. As I tell people, the admin division is with the foundation to keep everything else going. So with that being said, we serve over 70,000 constituents, and that will probably increase with some of the developments that are developments we've had in the past couple of years here in Camarillo. But in essence, we have 28 district parks. We have over 256 acres of parkland, and we have 5 different district facilities. We produce over 55 district events, and we'll kind of go through some of those. In a typical year, we'll have over close to 2,000 classes and programs, over 8,000 participants, and 800,000 park users. This year with COVID, it's been a little bit different, but I will tell you, we do see quite a few people in the park, and that's basically because right now, that is one of the things that everybody is trying to be able to do, is to be able to actually go out and use our parks. So this is just kind of a map to kind of show you where the overlay is. So the orange is the Camarillo sphere of influence. The green, which you'll be able to see is much larger, that's actually the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Parks sphere of influence. So you will notice that our territory goes all the way out to UC Channel Islands, and then actually goes as far north into Santa Rosa Valley and such. And then you can kind of see right here, which is Lewis Road. So it literally stops at Upland and Lewis Road from that direction, and then kind of goes up through the hills and into Sterling Hills and in that area. And there are a few pockets up there that are in county. So the district has 3 different types of funds. We have our general fund, which is most of the property tax, and we get most of our revenue through property tax, program fees, and rentals and grants. And then we have an assessment district, which the voters voted in 2001, which at that point in time knew that property tax wasn't going to cover everything we needed to do. And then the third way we get some of our funding, which is through Quimby funds. That doesn't happen very often. That only happens when there's development. So once again, our administrative services department, here's the things that they cover: customer service, finance, human resources, information, grants. We've been fortunate in the last few years, we've been able to get some grants, both programming as well as a grant about 4 or 5 years ago that helped with out at Cam Grove Park. So we were able to start part of a nature education center. So just some basics about our administrative services. In a typical year, we'll see and book over 1,000 reservations for our picnics, pavilions, and facilities. And then we'll register over 8,000 participants in the classes that we have. And those range anywhere from youth to senior classes, to sports, to tennis. So it's a wide variety and variation. So our recreation services department, which I call the fun department, so that's where you get to have all the fun. We do a plethora of different things here, and you can see in the various photos, the top left corner where you see a huge astronaut. That was part of our Christmas parade a couple of years ago when we were actually able to do that. And then we have some special events. The bottom left is working with a youth group over at our pool, and they were partnered with the firefighters to do some aquatics and health and safety. So our Recreation Services Department, a little bit more. We have a 4,000 square foot senior center. And so we do have dedicated programs to seniors, anywhere from bingo to lunch and movies to fitness classes, tech fairs. In the middle, you can see basketball, which we used, would happen out at Freedom Gym. So even with COVID, a couple things that we've still been able to do right now, because fitness is allowed outside, is we've worked with some of our senior classes that actually come out and do stretching, knowing that they're wearing masks, 12 feet social distance. So it's a way that people can at least stay a little bit active in part of the chaos. Other things that we do in our recreation department is we were awarded a $210,000 grant from Habitat Conservation Foundation. And so what that's helped us do is actually get kids back outside. So in the bottom left-hand corner there, you can see a school group that's actually being led by one of our instructors out at Cam Grove Park, which has been very successful. Another one that we've done is get the promotion that we did on website, social media, is get nurture your nature and get wild. So it was a challenge for people to get back outside and visit all 28 of our parks. And so we partner with different agencies, we partner with contract instructors, we do different programming as we continue to try and get people back outside. Other services that we provide, we have done and partnered with City of Camarillo for their summer concert series. So unfortunately this year we weren't able to do it. Hopefully next year we'll be able to go back and do that. But some other things that we've ventured out, we've done a flashlight Easter egg hunt. We've done art in the park. We've done touch a truck. We did that for the first time a couple of years ago, and it was amazing, all the kids that came out. We had fire trucks, dump trucks, and all the kids could come out, touch the truck, and talk to people. So that was, we had a SWAT unit out there, so it was quite fun for the group. One of the things that was largely successful this year is we did letters to Santa. So we worked with the Carpenters Union, who built, that's probably a 6-foot mailbox. It doesn't look that big right now, but standing next to it. And this year we had close to 375 kids that wrote letters to Santa, and we wrote back to each one of them. I think that was one of the things this year with COVID and everything that was really successful. Last year we had about 250. So obviously you can see that I think people were really looking for something. Other things that we do and other programs that we run, you can see some of the softball. You can see, once again, the bottom left, I kind of point that out a little bit because we partner every June. The first Saturday in June is National Trails Day. So we have partnered with the community as well as other groups to clean up trails and just, once again, make sure that people know that we have some trails here in Camarillo. We wish we had more. Unfortunately, we don't have as many as they have up the hill, but at least to have one or two is pretty exciting for us. Other things that we have is we have a indoor pool. So we have an 8-lane, 25-yard pool. So as you can see here, one of the things we do is we do swim lessons, aquatic fitness classes for both adults, seniors. We do structured workouts. We partner with the school district, YMCA, swim teams, so that way kids, once they've gotten past the swim lesson, that there's actually a next step for them should they so choose. And then we have Dos Caminos, which is one of our parks that's across from the hospital, right over in that area. And there's a preschool over there, so this is some of the preschool classes that we have as well. A couple family events just to point out is typically in a typical year, we'll do a end of summer camp out. So we've done that here at actually at the community center before. So it's $10. We've done it $10 for the entire family. They come out, we have a movie on Friday night, they can sleep over. So, you know, parents, if they don't really like to camp, but kind of want to camp, they can camp here. They get a breakfast the next day and then can go home. So literally it's about a 24-hour camping trip but we've had over 250 plus families that have participated in that. And then in the summers, we'll do movies. So typically either every week or every other week for about 7 to 8 weeks during the summer, we'll do movies. So once again, that one is free to the community. So we try and do family events that are free or inexpensive. We also have the other side of it for adults. So we have adult kickball, softball, and then adult both basketball and drop-in. So we try and hit the parents as well. Other things we have is we partner with community service groups. So those are organizations, because we don't necessarily as a district put on softball for youth or soccer. So we partner with like AYSO, which is American Youth Soccer Organization, or Camarillo Pony Baseball, or Camarillo Girls Softball. So they're the ones who get all the volunteers put on the league, and then they use district facilities. So in that, there's probably over about 3,000 to 4,000 kids that participate in one variation of those sports on an annual basis. Other thing we do is we have a lot of community partners. So as I said earlier, we partner with the City of Camarillo to produce the 2019 Summer Concert Series. We partner with the YMCA on various projects. Friends of Camarillo Dog Park, who helped actually, as I kind of go through some of the parks, actually helped and were very effective with the community in building 3 dog parks. Kidstream, if you have not heard of them, they're a fairly new organization within the last 3 years that have been working on getting a children's museum here in Camarillo. And so we've partnered with them on various projects as well. And then the picture you actually see is community band. So this band has been in existence, and it's all community members. And what they do is they play usually during the summers, usually the month of July. And so it's anybody who plays an instrument who's played before. They can sign up, go to practice, and then they perform for the community. So well received. The last department is our Park Services Department, and they're responsible for all the maintenance throughout all the parks. As I said, a few kind of points here. We have 28 parks, total of 256 acres. We have 3 dog parks. 33 soccer fields. You can all read, but we have quite an array of different amenities and opportunities for the community to participate one way or another. So just a little bit about our parks. We have our neighborhood parks are approximately 5 acres. We have community parks, which are typically 10, sports park, dog parks, and then some specialty parks. So some of our neighborhood parks, the one up top is Nancy Bush, and then we have Callegas and Adolfo are 3 of the smaller parks, which are in neighborhoods. And typically your neighborhood parks are usually within about a half mile to a mile with residents. So usually it's those residents around that will use those particular parks. Mission Oaks is one of our larger parks, and so typically our larger parks will have more amenities to them. So this particular park has softball fields, tennis, playgrounds, restrooms, as well as a dog park as part of that complex. Bob Kildee is another one of our parks, and in that particular park, once again, a larger park, tennis courts. We just finished the district about a year and a half ago. Built specifically or repurposed tennis courts for pickleball. So we actually have 4 dedicated pickleball courts at that particular site, along with 3 dedicated tennis, and then a multi-use tennis and pickleball. And in the bottom, you can see some handball courts, which typically on the weekends are typically full, and then in the aquatic center. Some of our larger parks, if you have been in Camarillo or close, you'll know that PV Fields, which is a 55-acre sports park, that's the one up top and is used quite heavily by soccer and then tournaments and such. And the one on the bottom is Freedom Fields, which is out by the airport. And last year, right before we went into COVID, we actually had just finished building 2 more fields out there that look nice, but not really used to date due to COVID. And these just some photos of dog parks. We have different types of dog parks. Springville is an all-enclosed dog park, where if you go to Mission Oaks, 3 sides are enclosed, but it really is a larger park, and it's not an enclosure. And then the third one, kind of down at the bottom, is out at Cam Grove. We have both an enclosed dog park and then specific dog park hours that dogs can use and roam the trails. A couple specialty parks that we have is we actually have a BMX track out at as part of Freedom Park, and then we have a RC track, the RC cars, and then you can see the bottom photo is a skate park. So the other thing that our Parks Department does is help support all the recreation programs. So you can kind of see one of the partners that we have is we have a school co-op that's out at Freedom. And typically on an annual basis in the winter, we will dump ice for them so they can kind of have a snow day. And then you can see working with different partners, the camp out and such. So just to kind of, one of the other big pieces and components is our capital projects. So in the last couple of years, part of Cam Grove, we were able to add a trail addition of about a quarter to a half an acre or mile. One of the things we've been doing is a lot of our facilities, since we were incorporated in 1962, some of our facilities have not been updated since either the late 70s or 80s. So we've been in the last probably 5 years in capital projects, probably over $4 or $5 million in just upgrading various facilities. So you can see anywhere from bathrooms that are in our community center to playgrounds to trails. One of the exciting projects that's on horizon is, if you're familiar with our Neal Park Ranch, it's one of the few, it's the only park in Camarillo that actually has a walking trail around it. So we had applied for Prop 68 grant funds about a year ago. Unfortunately, we're not awarded the grant, but the board has decided to move forward with that. That park has not been redesigned since the late 70s, so well over 30 plus years old. So what we're doing is giving it a refresh. So we'll be investing about $1 million in that park for phase 1. To make sure that we can continue the kind of the fitness aspect of that particular park. So it's a great project that we'll be moving forward with. So with that, the last piece I have is that about 5 years ago, almost 6 now, the district started a foundation, and part of that was to help offset some of the cost and such that there's so many projects. Like if we looked at all our project lists, we probably have over $20 million of projects. So one of the things the Park District did is engaged. So we actually have a 501c3, and we have a separate set of board members that actually serves on the foundation board. And with that, one of their goals is to continue with some of the upgrades out at Cam Grove Park, and actually to build a nature education center. So we've been raising funds in the last 5 years to help with that. And here's kind of what a design would look like. So you've already got a caretaker's house that's there. So it would be building on that. So the garage, as you can kind of see, is an old tattered garage right now, but the idea would be is to convert that garage so it would be a roll-up door, so you could have education classes and have elementary schools and such that would be out there. And using the house would be to have be able once again to teach classes and do some other stuff. So projects that kind of are on the horizon that hopefully you know, in the next few years, we'll be able to continue those projects. So with that, if anybody has questions or if anybody can answer anything for anybody, I'd be happy to do so.
Mary, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. What actions has the Park District taken to, I guess, connect with adjacent parks districts so that trails can continue, you know, other development has a propensity to go from one location to the next. Has there been any effort in that regard?
Yeah, there's been discussion. One of the things that actually is on our to-do list this year is actually having conversations, trying to get a meeting set up with UC Channel Islands. So one of the Cayugas Trail that actually starts at about Upland and goes through Camarillo. One of the things we'd love to see is for that trail to go all the way out to UC Channel Islands. So we're trying to figure out who the partners, what that would look like. Also having conversations, part of it is having conversations with landowners. So we would love, and I've had conversations with Jim Friedel, who's my counterpart up in Conejo, and we'd love to figure out how somehow we could connect our trails down here at Cam Grove Park and how we could connect it, through Hill Canyon or one of those directions. The challenge is property owners and trying to find out with the property owners if they're willing to have trails go through their property. So those are things that we have been looking at, trying to figure out connectivity. So it is on our radar.
Thank you very much. And, I have to say, I didn't realize how many activities and events that you folks put together. So congratulations on at least keeping those active. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the presentation. If I can, Supervisor Linda Parks and I help administer with my able assistant, Venice, the MAC here. And one of the thoughts in bringing the presentation forward is, you're right at the border of Somis, right? And the services that you provide. And I would think that the Somis community, if they're going to go to a park, they're going to go to the one nearest them. And those are the ones of your district. And so I think about how we might be able to integrate better if we were desirous of the community and the use of parks. And sometime in the future, it may be that we'll have the Somis Elementary School, if it gets vacated for a new one, that might be a location that might be converted for community use, whether it's community gardens or what have you. So just wanted to put it on the MAC's radar of the possible connections that we could make if Somis were in the Pleasant Valley Park District. So that's one of the thoughts that I had and wanted to just bring that out there and see what the MAC members might think about that possibility, as well as yourself.
Sure. We would love to entertain that. I know that we've had this discussion before, and looking at some of our ActiveNet is our computer software system that, when you register and such. And so I can probably tell you that on average, about 15% of the Somis, anywhere from 15 to 30% of Somis residents have either rented, participated in our classes, or done such. And part of that is because you're right, we are the closest public entity and have the park system to handle those requests. So it would not be outside of our realm to have discussions of what that would look like and how we could coordinate services and what that would look like for future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know in the past we've actually had residents in Somis talk about the community garden. That's the one I remember the most, but I imagine there are other thoughts on that too.
For information purposes, with the Somis Elementary School, is that on the horizon within the next 3 to 5 years, or is that dependent on school funding, or do you have any idea what that looks like?
Mr. Fulkerson, would you like to answer that question?
It depends on funding from the state or anywhere else we can get it. Only to the tune of about $20 million, $25 million.
Is that all?
That's it. We'll just hop, skip, and a jump away.
Has the school purchased land already, or was just an option? Do you know?
We have 16 acres right below Somis right now, kind of like on the big corner, leaving Somis or coming into Somis. We have 16 acres there already that we own.
Yeah, so I think at one point, you know, that is an important, you know, feature. Certainly if the school is going to move there, you'll have the old school that could be used potentially as park land, or vice versa. If the school doesn't move, that you may have a great asset there for the entire community if that were to become a park. So just throwing that out there, because I'm a big park person. I really like to be able to, you know, have parks in our communities, and that one is, you know, would be in your community, right?
Yep, right across the street.
Okay. And in the if you were to be a part of the district, I imagine there is a tax that the community pays. Is that right? For if you're in the district, I know that's the way it is out here in the Caneo Rec and Park District.
Yeah, so so I can get more information on that specifically. But in general, what ends up happening is that, so with property tax, a portion of your property tax, just like here in Camarillo, goes to parks. We get 0.004% of property tax, everybody's property tax that goes to the district. So instead of that 0.004 that goes to county parks, my understanding is that would end up going to the park district. The only other piece of that would be the assessment. So the city of, or shouldn't say the city because it's not, it's the residents of Camarillo that are within our district, with the assessment district, pay, depending on where they live, pay anywhere from $20 per parcel to, and it's a parcel, it's not, it has nothing to do with the valuation of your property. So anywhere from $20 to $40, and that helps pay for, you know, upgrades, amenities, and such like that. So that would be in addition to the property tax, but I can get more information if you'd like me to come back, and so I can speak a little bit better to that if you'd like. Okay.
And so if the members in the Somis community, which are not in the district, want to sign up for a program at the district, do they pay more because they're out of district?
They would.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were in district, then there'd be the in-district pricing.
Okay, so they are paying for the use of the services because they're not in the district. So if they were in the district, it would be a different amount if not free.
Right. So, and the caveat with that is if people sign up for classes. So, you know, somebody from Somis coming to use our parks, and there's no fee for the parks, then those obviously would be free no matter what. But if you're signing up for a specific service or a class, there is an out-of-district rate for that specifically.
Got it. All right. Well, it sounds like, you know, there may be interest depending on what might happen with the school, or separate and apart from that, if there are other things that the MAC community, the Somis community is interested from a park perspective. We may have some partnerships in the future on that too.
Sure.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the great presentation. I know that you've begun to do more in terms of trail connectivity and all of that, and that's exciting. I'm on the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy with one of your board members, and that's a combination of the Rancho Simi Rec and Park District and the Caneo Rec and Park District and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy all together are part of the MRCA. And you know, just that idea that you get these park districts together and you get more synergy that way. And one of those is through trails. So it's neat to see you guys doing that too.
We'd love to somehow connect, that's for sure.
Thank you for coming and presenting today.
Thank you,
You're
Mary.
very welcome.
Mary, can you do me a
Thank
favor and give me back the host?
Yes. Let's see. Where are we?
Denise, I think
Unable
we're
to
on.
stop share. There we go.
There we go.
You got
And
it
then
back?
go to the participants. Let me see if I can, and then just
Okay.
make me the host again.
I thought it just did it not?
No. Oops.
And then are you going to have Darren Kettle be the next host?
Where are you? Darren, do you have a PowerPoint?
Denise, no, I do not. So you
No.
you can maintain master control.
Okay.
Is it not? Oh, it's not.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
We're back to Pleasant
we're back
Valley.
to sharing.
Oh, do you have it back yet?
No, let me see. Where did you? Oh.
Because it said stop sharing.
Okay, so then you need to go, if you go down to participants, and then click on district supervisor, I think that's where you would make me the host. Click on district supervisor.
All right. Come on. When your screen doesn't want to play fairly. I've done something. It's got stuck in a queue.
Oh, okay. Well,
I apologize. It's not.
It may be that since Mr. Kettle doesn't have a PowerPoint, that he
yeah,
could
he can start.
begin the presentation while Denise and Mary look at how to switch.
All right.
control.
We can do that. You know, and I don't know if there's a way to be able to do it with where Mary's able to not share screen, but maybe that's part of the challenge we're running.
Yeah, if you could go down to shares.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Got it?
At least
Okay.
at least we've got we can see everybody a little bit more up close and personal in a virtual way, I guess.
Okay. Just for the record, we're reviewing item 7B, and that's the Daryl Kettle is the executive director for Ventura County Transportation Commission. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's nice to see everybody. Hello, Commissioner Parks and Supervisor Parks. So I think a few members of my staff have been before the Somis MAC in the past. So as I was introduced, I'm Darren Kettle. I'm the Executive Director of the Ventura County Transportation Commission. And a few of my staff have been before you as it relates to some transit questions that have come up as it relates to providing transit service in the Somis area. And so I'm going to touch on that a little bit, but this is, I think, my first time getting a chance to meet with you. So Happy New Year, strange year that it has been. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I really want to just, Denise had asked that I address 3 particular issues, but then just in general, if there's just anything from a transportation perspective that you have questions about, I'll be happy to try to answer those. And I will not go into a lot of detail about who VCTC is. I'm assuming that you've at least somewhat familiar. Supervisor Parks is one of my 17 bosses. I have an elected official from all 10 cities, all 5 county supervisors, and 2 public members that are my governing board. And of course, we touch just about every bit of transportation in our county. I'll say with maybe the exception of the local pothole. So we're involved in transportation planning, public transit, major highway projects. You see from my background, we dabble in trains and other things to bike and pedestrian. So hopefully, if you have questions, I can try to address those after I'm done speaking here. I do want to make one quick introduction because her camera is not on, but a member of my team, member of my staff is on this call. Her name's Caitlin Brooks, and she is one of our, there she is right there. She is one of our transportation planning managers, and she has been playing a lead role in one of our one of our efforts dealing with freight corridor issues. And so since we have Caitlin on video now too, I'll just touch a little bit about what's going on a freight corridor study that VCTC is working on. This actually goes quite a ways back. It all starts back in the early 1990s when VCTC undertook a major freight corridor study that addressed how to move freight out of the port of Hueneme. There was a recognition that the port was growing. We had what I call sort of the Oxnard/Camarillo industrial complex, where a lot of logistics was taking place, logistics meaning the movement of freight. And we completed this study that identified 3 major projects that was going to extend from the port of Hueneme to the 101 freeway corridor to improve the movement of freight in and out of the port to the 101 corridor. The last of those 3 projects is close to getting started, and it's building a bridge over the railroad tracks on Rice Avenue in the city of Oxnard. And that's a bit of an infamous spot. Sadly, we had a train versus truck collision a few years ago where the train was derailed at this location. It struck a truck that found itself on the tracks. And it certainly raised the profile of the importance of creating what's called a grade separation at that location. We also had a major project on the 101 corridor. It's on the 101 freeway itself, which was a brand new interchange, freeway interchange at the 101 and Rice Avenue. So there's a long history in trying to address freight movement in our county. And the question though was, okay, well, what's next? Now that we've generally gotten freight and facilitating the movement of freight from sort of that Hueneme, Oxnard, and a portion of Camarillo area, where does it go from there? And now the 101 obviously is a key major regional route. It's a US 101, so there's a lot of freight that gets to the 101 and then disperses across the region and the state. But one of the things we found is that trucks don't just stop at that location. And so the study that Caitlin is right now leading is how do we move freight beyond that location? And so for the last year or so, actually a little longer than that, we've been working on this freight corridor study, and we've been identifying different routes where truck freight is sort of making its way through the county in an attempt to identify the right corridor to move freight, particularly from the 101 location at about Rice Avenue. And I'll just say sort of that 101 stretch from Camarillo through West Oxnard to the 126 corridor and out to Interstate 5. So while we do have to deal with freight traffic, as I know you're very familiar with on Somis Road, State Route 34, the 118 highway, we are always going to have some level of freight on our state highway system. We're trying to identify the best route to ideally make some modest improvements to, so that we can then move freight in and out of our region more efficiently and have as minimal an impact on our communities as possible. You can imagine that's not an easy conversation to have because we have existing routes that right now that are state highways in many cases or major regional county roads. And I can cite just a couple of those. You're familiar, of course, with State Route 34. I don't need to tell you about the truck traffic that comes off of 118 and State Route 34. You know it as well as anybody. And while there's been a very, very small reduction in the amount of truck trips through that area, it really hasn't gone down as much as you might think. We actually have data that shows that truck traffic has continued. What's dropped is the amount of vehicular traffic, car traffic. So we don't have both trucks and cars creating lots of congestion on the 118 and State Route 34 or Somis Road. But
I'm sorry, this is Pat Richards. Was that information directed pre-COVID or after the event of COVID?
It's actually been since COVID has been around. We've had just a small drop in truck traffic. One of the things that we're finding is and in California, while we've struggled a little bit from an economic perspective, the nature of freight movement hasn't dropped as much as a lot of people anticipated. And so particularly this 118-34 corridor, the Port of Hueneme has had some drop in freight traffic. But given the nature of our agriculture industry and some of the other sort of logistics in our region, you know, now with Amazon having a couple of different locations and the trucks that come through there, we've not seen the reduction in truck traffic that I think intuitively we would have thought. And so it's still moving. But again, I think one of the reasons we don't feel the impacts quite as much is because our normal car traffic commutes to work, certainly in a stay-at-home orders environment. We're just not using the highway system as much as we were pre-COVID, but the trucks are still out there. So we have State Route 34, Somis Road. We have State Route 232, which is out in Oxnard, which is sort of that Vineyard Avenue corridor. We also have Rice Avenue / Santa Clara, which is Rice Avenue is going to become Pacific Coast Highway, State Highway 1 in the not too distant future. But Santa Clara Road, which is the extension beyond Rice Avenue, that's a county road. Also, there's a lot of truck traffic there, which is, depending on which direction you're coming from, is sort of the continuation of the 118 if a truck decides not to go out to the 126. So LA Avenue and Wells Road, Santa Clara, that 3 points, we're seeing a lot of truck traffic and a lot of truck movements there. So this is all to say that we see recognizing the importance of the logistics industry for the overall regional economy. It's not something where you can just say that problem is going to go away. And in fact, many would argue you don't want it to go away because it would have impacts on our regional economy. So what DCTC is trying to do is say, okay, what are the right places to try to put trucks and then make the infrastructure improvements long-term that can address those needs. And when I say long-term, I'll remind you that the study that we are just now finishing and here in 2020 goes all the way back to about 1992 or 1993, which was the first what we called port access study, which was dealing with the Port of Hueneme. And a lot has changed since then. And we're only now finally finishing up. And I should mention that grade crossing project I referred to earlier will likely go to construction in about 1.5 years or so, and is a joint project between Caltrans, the County of Ventura, the City of Oxnard, and then we're helping make sure the project gets funded. And it's not an inexpensive project, as Supervisor Parks knows from sitting on our commission, because it's something we talk about. And of course, the County of Ventura is also a key player in that. So she gets to hear about it when she sits at both places of conversation. So that's what's going on the freight side. So maybe if there's any questions, I can talk about the freight question and then I can move on to the next item.
Yeah, Darryl, Pat Richards, I've got a question. You talk about a freight corridor. Does that mean that your roadway is going to have to be widened to provide 2 lanes?
In all likelihood, I think that we're going to need to have, it's either that or we have worse congestion because we have more, because the trucks aren't going away. So there's the probability would be, Pat, is that yes, that with the corridor that's identified, we'll see infrastructure improvements, meaning widening of whatever corridor that is. So because otherwise we end up only sticking more trucks onto the same amount of roadway capacity that exists there today. And you know, I certainly hear quite a bit about the frustration about truck traffic just generally being difficult for people to deal with. You know, it's a frustration to be stuck behind, you know, a slow moving truck, that type of thing. So what one of the things that Caitlin will be doing is that we will be going out for stakeholder involvement on that that plan, and she will be coming before the MAC, so you will get to see her again in the coming months, as long as Supervisor Parks and Venice invite us back, that so you can see more of the detail with that's being presented, which will involve with things like truck counts and where trucks are coming from. Right now, we've been really reaching out to the various logistics industry, the Port of Hueneme, about where do truck drivers go? What are the routes that they're using right now? Trying to make sure that we have a fully informed study. So you'll hear more from Caitlin about that in the future.
Yeah. Daryl, what's your timetable?
I believe, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, are we talking about the March type of time frame to be back out in front of the MAC?
Yes, and sorry, I apologize. I just lost my childcare assistance, and so my intern is here, and I didn't want to have her interrupt this meeting. Yes, our timetable, we're doing stakeholder interviews right now and going out to the public to see. It's been really informational, and it's changed the course of the study really from what we've been hearing from our stakeholders, both community environmental groups and port operators. But our timing is we'll be doing, it's never too late to talk to us on our website. So we'll be continuing to do stakeholder outreach throughout the course of the study until it's finalized in June. So we're planning on going to the VCTC board and the Oxnard Harbor Commission in May with a final draft, and then for final adoption in June. And so our public virtual workshops will be held in February, March, and April. Is really when we're going to be doing a majority of our outreach.
And when Caitlin talks about her intern is like 18 months old or something along those lines. So.
She is. I'm surprised she hasn't yelled at me. I was panicking trying to put on Frozen. You could hear her in the background.
That's one of the charming things of Zoom.
Yes.
Daryl, how will notice be given to just local residents, say the community of Somis? How are they going to know about these meetings?
So Caitlin, you want to take that question?
Yes, we're planning on noticing the meetings on our website, sending out e-blasts, posting them on social media and through all of the local cities. So the Somis MAC will receive a notification of when we're planning on having these virtual workshops and just broadcasting it everywhere. And then they'll also be recorded. And so if you can't make any of the meeting times, they'll be available on our website and I think also on YouTube. So at any point when you're available, you can watch them and schedule a meeting with us to discuss what you see in the workshops, or send us a survey through our website or public comment.
And what is your website?
It's goventura.org/VCFreight.
And could I ask a question?
Of course.
That is, when the county did their general plan update, for example, we went out to the community big time and held lots of updates, meetings where people can be updated on it and give their input. And they selected actually going to these municipal advisory councils as part of that, you know, the planning commission and some other meeting boards. But the MAC and the Somis MAC specifically actually had the presentation there as part of the outreach. Do you think that part of VCTC's outreach could actually be, instead of having the MAC go to you, that you could go to the MAC?
Oh yeah, yeah. That I think is the intent. I mean, as much as we can do it in a, you know, timing wise, we're probably virtual for a while. But this is the type of place where we would absolutely bring it, and then for those that you know, today we have a relatively small audience, but this is one of the things that Caitlin has shared with me, is that when we have this conversation about the freight stuff, it is getting people's attention. There's a lot of interest in this. And so I would hope that if we can get the word out utilizing the MAC's mailing list, that we would have a lot of interest in when Caitlin and the consulting team that is supporting VCTC in this to before the Somis MAC.
Thank you. And you know that I've been strong on the commission to discourage the use of Somis Road as the freight corridor because it would destroy the town of Somis, and that's a big one. So I'm very strong on that. But it does give us an opportunity, if you do bring it to the MAC, to have their input. And also, one of the ways that we distribute to the community is through the water bill, because the county does the water bills there. So, you know, this was not booked as a discussion on the freight corridor. Like you said, it would probably bring a lot more individuals, but just wanted to make that request that you do have a follow-up with the MAC and have them have the ability to provide their input at that time.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
Definitely,
you.
we'll definitely come back to the Somis MAC. I just wanted to touch on, we have your previous comments. I remember when we went to the commission for to approve the funding for this project, you had commented about the use of Somis Road, and so we've incorporated that as part of the public comment in our study.
Okay, you could probably multiply that by about 350 people.
And our public outreach budget for this project is pretty small, and so it'll be us coming back to the max and going to the commission. And we're also going to be relying a lot on social media. I think we were originally supposed to have in-person meetings, and so without that, we're trying to do our best to spread the word, but we'll certainly be back. And in advance of us coming back to the Somis MAC, if anyone wants to submit their comments on the website, they will be incorporated into the study. So that's also another option before we return.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot of history, isn't there, on particularly the intersection of Somis and 118, and a very litigious one too.
Yes, there has been.
All right.
So thank you, Caitlin, for being able to join us. I think that as we transition to the next item, I think one of the things you also find is part of the role of this is to explain just how complicated the larger freight conversation is, and moving freight safely and efficiently out of the region and back through the region. Because again, the port of Hueneme is also, there's those same ships are taking stuff out. And so I think it'll be informative as much as there's interest in the local flavor of the conversation. You will hear a little bit about what freight in Ventura County is all about too. So hopefully you'll find that at least interesting. So the next item I'll touch on briefly that Venice asked I address is the nature of public transit and the bus service that we right now have operating. This is going to come as no surprise. Since COVID, our ridership has dropped. Our bus system, though, that runs through Somis out along State Route 34, Somis Road, and 118, we've actually not reduced any service on that route. That route is funded from a special grant, and we've been able to maintain the normal service levels on the what we call the Cross County Limited. The reason it's called Cross County is it goes all the way from Simi Valley through Moore Park, Somis, Camarillo, and then all the way up to the County Government Center and actually to Ventura College. So it is the one place you can do what we call a one-seat ride from Simi Valley to the 101 corridor and then to Ventura. So it was actually starting to pick up some decent ridership. It was a little bit slow in getting started, but was getting good, decent ridership. And then COVID hit. One of the values of the route was it had a direct connection to the Camarillo Metrolink station, where college students could transfer to the route that goes down to Cal State Channel Islands. So we were starting to see some headway, and then we sort of got this sucker punch called COVID-19. So, but it continues to operate. We don't have great ridership, to be quite honest, coming out of the Somis location. We get maybe 1 or 2 boardings a day at the stops in Somis. I think that's due in part to the fact that just people aren't going very far at this point, and so that again was a very strong desire on the part of, I continue to call Linda Commissioner Parks. That is habit for me, but Supervisor Parks. That when we started this route, that we made sure we had, and I think I just heard a train coming through somewhere over there. So
it's in Somis.
It's in Somis. There we go. Okay, that's yeah. All right. It's also right behind me at the moment, so it's who knows. But
yours looks faster.
And I don't know that Somis was necessarily on the coast either. So it's there's that. So yeah, so we have seen our ridership drop, but the route is going to continue to remain. It has been popular, and when we come out of, when we get back to, I think, more normal school schedules and more normal commute schedules, we'll be sort of, remarketing it as an option. And, one of the things, just so people are aware of it, some are saying, well, could transit ridership be down because people are afraid to take transit? that may be, I don't want to doubt that some people may have some anxiety about that, but I can only assure you the level of cleaning and sanitizing, we already did a pretty good job making sure that our buses were clean, but under the COVID world, we have completely taken it to a whole nother level. And so when people are ready to come back and get back to school and get back to work, that will be an option. And I hope, because we have another transit discussion underway, that we can work on, okay, you can take the bus out of Somis into Camarillo, but then what? And frankly, in our county, we've not done a great job of what you do once you get to certain locations, because our transit systems, frankly, could be better in how they coordinate. And right now, because we have 9 different public transit systems in our county, might not be the most way of making sure we get people around. So we'll be having that's another conversation we're talking about at DCTC. And so stay tuned for that. But are there any questions as it relates to transit? Again, right now I should mention, we are not charging fares on any of our buses in the big blue buses that are the ones that go through Somis, and any other of our routes that the big blue buses are on. And that's primarily because we're trying to make sure that we reduce touch points for people boarding our bus. Masks are required, it's a mandate. You can't ride a bus without coming on with a mask. And so that we're taking all possible steps to ensure a safe ride. If there aren't any questions that relates to transit, the last item that Denise asked that I talk about, this is something that Commissioner Parks is certainly very well aware of, is there is a big project that Caltrans is going to be working on in the not too distant, well, I shouldn't say not too distant future. It's a few years off, but the good news is they've started it. So there we go. The project is a repaving of State Route 34, Somis Road, from 118, actually all the way down to Oxnard. So the entire segment of State Route 34. It's, I forget the price tag on it at this point, but it's in the $50 to $60 million range. There was a hope that Caltrans District 7, our local Caltrans district, was going to get some extra funding to put bicycle lanes and sidewalks from the Somis area into Camarillo and extend it all the way down to about where Lewis Road is where Lewis Road heads out to State Route 34. Unfortunately, Caltrans did not get the funding for that. They had to compete on a statewide basis for funding for this one kind of bucket of money for what we call active transportation, and that's just a fancy way of saying bicycle and pedestrian projects. Unfortunately, District 7 did not get any funding. They got one in the entire District 7, and so our project didn't get it. But Commissioner Parks, Linda Parks, heard at our own commission meeting last week that the district director said it is a priority of his to find the funding to make sure that that segment between Somis Road and LA Avenue, 118-34, again, 2 state highways, we identify the funding to do those sidewalks and bike lanes all the way into Camarillo. And actually down as far as to the Metrolink station, because that is where our bus transit system is, and of course where Metrolink is. So those were his words, and so we're going to hold him to it. And I know so long as Linda is sitting at a commission meeting, sitting virtually, and then in person with Tony Taveras, our new district director, she will be reminding him of his comments. So that'll be something just to please pay attention to. The project itself, the repaving job, doesn't happen until, right now the tentative construction date is not until 2025, I believe was the date that was mentioned. But the project the engineering and that type of thing is starting now, and it is being funded. The repaving of that route is being paid for from the new, the new gas tax revenues that California put in place a couple of years ago to pay for what we call state of good repair, which is taking care of the stuff we have out there right now. Not really much new capacity, just taking care of the roadways that we have out in California across the state. So that's where things are.
Darren, Pat, Richards, you're talking about Caltrans wanting to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk along that whole stretch?
That is exactly what they would like to do. I'm sorry, Pat, I lost you there.
They have a drainage ditch that they have to go through just past the intersection of Somis Road and 34. Somis Road and 118. That's a monumental exercise to go through. And is this a precursor to widening the roadway?
I would not say that. That's certainly not part of the design that Caltrans is talking about by any stretch of the imagination. My sense is what they see it at this point, barring something where it came in and said, okay, this is going to be the freight corridor, which again, I don't want to get ahead of the study because that would be the reason why you would look at needing to add lanes to Somis Road, is because you had to deal with focusing truck traffic through there. And certainly, again, Linda Parks has made her statements very strongly about that. That's a non-starter. And again, Commissioner Parks is one of my 17, so I listened to her, but I listened to my 16 other ones too. But because we have a job to do, and so we got to be sensitive to that. But we're also saying there are probably better places, but I don't want to. I want to be careful that I don't prejudice any conversation along those lines. Linda's going to.
Are you a proposal that was identified way back when the intersection of Somis Road and 118 was being considered? It would be a bypass somewhere along Sand Canyon Road, following the railroad tracks, and then making its connection to Somis Road. Has anybody investigated that at all?
Not to my knowledge. And I've been here 13 years. I've heard the war stories regarding various transportation infrastructure improvements in sort of that what I call the Somis region, Somis Valley area. I'm not familiar with that one, Pat. I haven't heard about it. My sense is that one of the things that really a lot of this is just going to be based on the availability, having funding, and we are a long way away from having conversations where we would have enough funding to do some of these really big ticket long-term projects. What I see more likely is our existing corridors and where the right place is to make some improvements in some of those corridors. So on this bike trail component, I'm somewhat familiar with that drainage ditch location. I would expect that, given the cost of something along those lines, that may be what we call value engineered, to the point where maybe that the trail, the bike lanes and the sidewalks may not go to that length. It could, but that is a possibility. I do know Caltrans they've done some real preliminary work on this trail concept. They see the trail and sidewalks where they make sense. My sense, Pat, to your question, is more along the lines of that segment between, I'll call it sort of that Somis Market location and the fire station area, working our way towards Camarillo. I think that there are some sidewalks already through there, so I don't expect that Caltrans is going to do anything more than that. But I could see very easily that the project that Caltrans would consider would be curb, gutter, bike lanes, and sidewalks in that segment from, I'll say, like I said, Somis Market area down to Camarillo. And then there's some places down in Camarillo which that on State Route 34 that don't have sidewalks. They're just dirt. It's very wide. That's not an issue. There's not a need for property acquisition. It's not the same type of situation as we have in Somis, where you've got property right up to the state right-of-way line. Whereas in Camarillo, sort of south of, Adolfo, maybe, that you actually have a fairly wide state right-of-way and there's nothing there. It's just dirt or asphalt pavement. So that I think is where the focus is, Pat, more so than up in the Somis area. It's more about connectivity.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Unrelated. I had an unrelated question. There's I think it's a Gold Coast facility behind Costco in Oxnard.
Yes.
What is that?
So the Gold Coast Transit District had for since the early 70s, had a very small, what I call postage stamp bus yard in Oxnard, just right near where the Oxnard train station is. It was probably, it was at capacity the moment they drove the first bus in to that location back in the 70s. And so that is the new Gold Coast Transit District bus facility. So they has the capacity for, I think it's about 150 buses, room for expansion, and a number of other things. So that is their headquarters and their maintenance facility and everything else. It's their single, so their single yard.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I had a couple
Okay.
comments too, if I can. And thank you so much for coming, Darren. It's great to have you and have the MAC have the opportunity to see you almost live, but in person. And also wanted to thank you for the work that was done to bring the bus through Somis on Somis Road, and that, you know, was enabled by the improvement of the intersection of Somis and 118. But I know at one point they were talking about having the bus like go through neighborhoods because they wouldn't let a bus stop happen on Somis Road, which, you know, seemed kind of unusual, but better thoughts prevailed and we were able to get that bus stop. And we're really thankful to have that there. And hopefully once COVID's over, we'll see a growth in that ridership. Regarding the corridor study, as I recall, the corridor study, and I know there are kind of two studies out there, but they had a radius from which to look along the 101 corridor, right? Was that correct? And it didn't quite get to the Somis community, and so they were not in that study. Is the corridor study that you're talking about the one from Port Hueneme to the rest of the county in 118? Does that currently consider using Somis Road at all?
So it does in the sense that we did not take the freight study recognizes all the state highways. And because State Route 34 is a state highway, I'll say it's in the mix, only because it's a state highway, and it's with that it falls into the area to be studied. Again, not to get ahead of ourselves, but there's a recognition that what routes may make more sense, and that would be something that'll come up.
So the study that was brought to the commission that had that radius that precluded Somis, what study was that?
So that was what we called our 101 Communities Connected. And so that study, we did a planning study, and this is just for the group's awareness. So it's 101 Communities Connected, and the focus was along the 101 corridor. And under the state guidelines for the study, the radius, the established radius or distance from the 101 was 3 miles. And so the Somis area was outside that distance of 3 miles from what is effectively the center line of the 101 corridor. So we looked at, and the reason that was important was not just to look at highway traffic or freeway traffic, but looking at other transportation modes, including bicycle and pedestrian and public transit. And so the idea behind it is one of the funding sources that can potentially make improvements to the 101 corridor requires a study that is the study that we're talking about here. And it was really focused on the 101 corridor. And then there had to be a limit in the distance from that 101, and it was 3 miles.
Okay, so two different studies, understand.
Yes, correct.
Good to know. And then regarding the bike lane, I liked you called it a trail at one time, and that, of course, is the safest way if you could have it off-road, you know, separated from the road, particularly when you have some high-speed traffic along the road too. So, and I was very encouraged by the superintendent. He had a gleam in his eye and everything, saying he absolutely, you know, this is something he wants to see is that bike lane. So that would be great because it would connect Somis not only to Camarillo, but also to the library, which is really important. It's right down the road, essentially. We have a school there, and there is poor internet in Somis. So some students actually have to go to the library just for getting internet. So it's important. Another thing I wanted to put on your radar is that, and it will actually be an update that I'll be giving to the MAC shortly, a farm worker housing project you probably know about. I think you live not too far from the Somis community, and the Somis farm worker housing project is looking at be going to the Planning Commission soon, but if that is developed, there'll be hundreds of units right on, again, that's kind of Lewis Somis Road right there. And those individuals being able to have bicycle or sidewalk, that kind of thing is an important consideration. It's not the best location because it's not in the city where you have all those things already. But if they are going to try to put that in there, I think it's important to consider at least that bike lane, I think would be an important feature of that. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Oh, just thinking how that active transportation funds, you know, that whole concept of to put forward that bike lane would be really a benefit. I hear from people in Somis who would like to feel safer and be able to ride on that. And so we'll see where it goes. I feel like I'm going to be one of those old politicians that come back to say, oh yes, I remember when we like started this, you know, but hopefully it won't be, I won't be too old at the time when we actually go to the ribbon cutting.
Right. Well, you'll be able to, you know, you'll be able to ride a bike on it or something like that, Linda. So
I'd love that.
Yeah. I can tell you when I heard the news that the project didn't get the funding, I was pretty fired up for it, because I think it's a project that has for a variety of reasons, makes a lot of sense. And it was really, I said, we're not going to give up on this. So yeah. I'm not going to give up on either.
Thank you. And that last, our previous superintendent at Caltrans was just 100% for active transportation, for bike lanes. And they had an incredible, you know, blueprint already out there to connect all of this, connect to the Metrolink. And it, you know, the dream is there. So now it's just a matter of funding, right? And in our county also, our Board of Supervisors is committed to putting funds for bike lanes. So maybe there might be some partnership there too. As well as the city of Camarillo. And you can do it for us. You can get that all put together.
I'm on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, dear. So I'll be in touch for when you come back, when you can come back to the MAC.
Will do. Sounds good. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Next item on our agenda is regarding Measure O and hemp ordinance. Denise, or you or Linda?
Okay, let's see. Measure O.
I gave you a lot of information.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Measure O passed. I wasn't too surprised about that. And I think I described what Measure O does, but basically it allows for the growing of cannabis as opposed to hemp. And you are all very familiar with the hemp issue, but this allows for cannabis to be grown in any greenhouse, essentially, in the unincorporated county, as long as it's, I think, 1,200 feet from sensitive areas. Sensitive areas are defined similarly to the hemp ordinance. So I anticipate this could be an issue for the Somis community, knowing that the hemp was of such concern. We have also, at the Board of Supervisors, went ahead and approved the actual ordinance for hemp. We had like an emergency one there that required a half-mile buffer. The board since approved the actual hemp ordinance that is actually now only a quarter-mile buffer. And it was a 4-1 vote. I voted against it, particularly because of the Somis community, also Santa Rosa Valley, because the definition of that buffer, you know, is a residential zone called existing community in your area. And there are actually areas outside of the Somis town, which are also outside of the existing community, but they're neighborhoods, and the Groves is an example of that. So there are definitely concerns that I have. We are limited to what we can do in terms of Measure O particularly, because Measure O, you have to go on the ballot to change anything. I have some notes on this, but I think that's pretty much the main points on it. Do you have some others that you think I might be missing there? And Somis School, that's considered a sensitive site, so it's, but it's actually the border of the quote existing community, which is a general plan designation. And that's even wider than the school. So that would be the boundary that would help those areas around Somis's existing community to have that buffer, so they can't put a green, well, they can't grow cannabis or hemp within that area. But I would have preferred a half mile. That is what the Somis MAC had recommended, but that is not what the Board of Supervisors approved. Your letter was, my case was a lone vote.
What would be prohibitive changing the Groves area to the community area? Zoning wise.
One big thing is that it is currently agriculture or open space protected by SOAR.
Okay.
So to change the general plan to residential, it would have to go to a vote of the people of the county of Ventura. And then it would be able to have more development also as a result of that too.
Yeah.
Neither good
All
option.
right, thank you.
And one good thing, in at least a little bit of an offset, is that the market is flooded, particularly with cannabis. So that might be a benefit. And this can only be grown in greenhouses. They do have to have the best odor control technology. I really pushed that one. So for example, you can't just have hoop houses. And this again with cannabis in a greenhouse. I was also able to get an exemption, so you can't grow it in greenhouses in the buffer, which was what was happening originally next to the Groves. They were using an exemption that allowed it for if it's in a greenhouse, but
It can't get grown at all now.
you'll be in those buffers. So that was another thing that I was able to get.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
Moving on our agenda, we have a review of the MAC meeting calendar.
Oh,
Somebody
I can share that with you. Oh, let me-
say again?
I said I can share that with you, just so you can take a look at the dates. Hold on. There you go. It's jarring when that happens. So basically, you're the second Wednesday of the month, every other month, January to. Is that better?
Yep, that's good, right there.
Yeah, you can make it a little bit bigger.
No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
All right, any suggested changes?
Looks
Looks
good.
like February isn't the 3rd or the 2nd.
It's every other month, starting in
Gotcha.
January, yeah. And we can always call a special meeting should you need one on an off month. That's no problem. If something were to arise.
Okay. Any comments regarding the meeting schedule? Hearing none. Denise, do we have to have a motion or?
Yeah, if you want to do a motion and just approve the calendar.
I'll make the motion to approve the calendar for the 6 meetings.
Okay,
I second it.
okay.
Okay.
Bob Fulkerson,
Yes, ma'am.
Jack Foss,
Yes.
and Pat Richards.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Luis, Supervisor Parks, did you have any other additional comments or?
Just to let you know that the farm worker housing project is before the Planning Commission tomorrow. January 14th, starting at 8:30 in the morning, and you can go to the county's Resource Management Agency website, and that is where the Planning Commission link is, and you can actually participate at the Planning Commission over Zoom like you are doing now. And you can also email comments if you don't want to participate, and you can email them to the planner. And his name is Justin, and his last name is Bertoline.
Bertoline.
Bertoline. And the reason I say that is because that's how you know his email, justin.bertoline@ventura.org. And Bertoline is spelled Bertoline. And so that I know many of you, particularly everybody who is interested and signed up, should have already gotten a notice of this, as well as I believe Venice sent it out to the whole MAC too. So you have that information, a way to participate in that. And I know it's, as we know, it was brought to our MAC, and it is really on the fastest track I have seen because of state law that limits the ability of hearings and the people who are running those hearings. For example, as I understand, the Planning Commission will be not necessarily making a recommendation, but they are, quote, considering the matter. And then it goes to the Board of Supervisors. We will consider the matter. But it's a difficult project, quite frankly, to stop because it is under a state law that is in place specifically to make it difficult to stop, so that's pretty straightforward. What about SOAR? That's a good question. My understanding of SOAR is that there is an exemption if there's no other place in a city that you can put affordable housing. And I don't know if the findings for that was made. That's my thought. However, the planning department doesn't think it does need to go through SOAR because they say it does not require a change of the general plan, that the general plan allows for farm worker housing on farmland, which is, as Pat and myself were both planners from the old days. And as we look at it, you put residential on residentially designated and zoned land, but that is not what is being proposed here. So it's very unprecedented in many ways. I know that one of the concerns of the Somis community particularly has been, is it really going to be for farm workers, and is it really going to be affordable? There are affordable housing complexes throughout the state, throughout the county, in cities, and they are definitely affordable because they have to be, they're conditioned to be. And so that to me doesn't seem like an issue as someone who has seen it work and knows that that happens. So the second question of how do we know they're really farm workers? I'll be very interested to find out how they can guarantee that. But I know that that is the emphasis, and that will be the requirements, and it's just making sure that those requirements are enforced. And I know there's been talk about this isn't really low income, and it's there again, it just comes down to what the definition is, and it's very well recognized what is considered low income. It comes from the state of California. There's no wiggle room in there, and it's based on the size of the family. So when you hear like it allows for people making 70,000, it's like, but it's for a large family. So it depends on the size of the household, which defines what low income is. But that to me isn't really a place for wiggle room. So I look forward to hearing it when it comes to me as a supervisor. I'm pretty sure it will end up at the Board of Supervisors. And with that, I have to be objective, or I will have to not be on the Board of Supervisors. I won't be able to vote on it. I don't believe SOAR is going to take a position as far as I know. If they did, I also would step down from the decision at the board. So we will, I anticipate hearing it at this point, and I anticipate remaining objective and getting the testimony and working with my fellow supervisors in making that decision. It'll be interesting to see what the Planning Commission says too. So that's farm worker housing. I was also just going to mention, I tried with Somis School to see if the Public Utilities Commission would step in to force Southern California Gas to move their old lines, high pressure lines. They don't feel like they have the authority and they meet the regulations. They're not, out of, they're not illegal or anything. So they feel like there isn't much they can do. And I was hoping if not, they would force the SoCal to help fund the school. I'm not hearing that either. I am writing to Senator Limon, who just became a new sworn-in senator. She was in the assembly, and I know she cares much about the community and seeing maybe there are some state funds that could assist with the moving of Somis School. So just something for her to have on her radar too. I don't know if she is familiar with the issues, so I'm going to bring her up to date. And you heard the information from Darren. There's also a Caltrans study of Somis Road, and I'm going to pass it over to Venice to talk about because it was a meeting yesterday. I think I was at the Board of Supervisors and I couldn't participate. So if you could update them on what that Caltrans discussion was.
So this was in response to a, oh, sorry, Pat.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of Supervisor Parks. Some time ago, I reviewed the document that the County Planning Division was using in order to determine farm worker and the affordability aspect of it. What they were currently using, in my opinion, was very, very poorly written. I had submitted a draft document asking for comments and replies. I have not heard anything from the County Planning Division. So, I mean, you got 360 units as opposed to the typical, 3, 4, or 5 farm worker.
Yeah. Also that the aspect of the fact that if they build those units, it's basically, a stone's throw from Somis School, but none of those kids could go to Somis School because they got the gas on it. And I know our time, student bust or what have you. So there are issues, and I would just recommend that you bring them and let them hear it. And aside, at our Board of Supervisors yesterday, we have new supervisors, and they both put forward new planning commissioners, and both of them withdrew them. So currently we have the same planning commissioners that were there before. Supervisor Levere, Supervisor Ramirez, both withdrew theirs. Supervisor Levere wanted to appoint Chris Stevens, who was just recently the head of the Planning and the Resource Management Agency. It'd be pretty inappropriate in my perspective to have the head of the department sitting on the Planning Commission who hired all the staff that are coming to him and all that. So he stepped back from that. And I know Supervisor Ramirez had some people very upset with her planning commissioner, so she stepped back. It would be a good, you've got veteran planning commissioners on there. Really recommend that you have that discussion with them. I think that would help a lot, and they will help you get your answers. They usually let those meetings, go the full length and let people get everything out of their system generally. I don't know if they're going to keep doing that, but it's been, I think, really helpful for the public.
Good note. So, thank you.
Pat, I think that previously you had brought up, and I don't know if it was ever answered or addressed, that does this development, potential development, set it up for future development of the property? Is this farm workers housing forever? Is there a limit? is it just setting it up for actual housing development in a roundabout way, in an underhanded way? And I don't know if that question was ever answered for you.
So far, no. Other than the environmental impact report does discuss, the potential for future development, but they indicated that there is none.
That might also be a part of that concept, that the reason they don't believe it goes to SOAR is because only farm worker housing is exempted on farmland. So if they make it something that's not farmland, then it's not legal.
The property would have to be rezoned to residential.
Then it would need to go to a vote of the people because it wouldn't be consistent with SOAR.
And
So
conceivably, these things could pop up all over the county because you can't, like I say, that's hard to stop them. I mean, you can put one in Fillmore, one in Santa Paula, a couple in Oxnard, one in Ventura. I mean, obviously somebody's making some money out of this, so there is reason to think, why would we only have one in the county?
I'm interested to see about that concept of somebody's making money, because I think of it as it's being put together by entities for very low income and they don't make up money on that. So it's kind of like these non-profit organizations putting this kind of thing together, but I'm not 100%.
And I think the other issue was water. I mean, water is at a premium, and how are they going to supply affordable water to the rest of the community when they've got 360 units with multiple people in them, without affecting the rates that the rest of the community are going to have to absorb?
It could potentially affect the rate, but also think about sewer. There isn't one, and how could you put a 360 unit apartment building on a place with no sewer system, so, or if they're going to package, treatment plant, who's going to run that? And you can't run it with low income apartment rates, that isn't enough money. So I again, I have to be a little bit careful because I have to not have more information than the rest of my board of supervisors when it comes to us. But I do hope you will connect with the Planning Commission tomorrow morning, or send an email if you don't want to, be on the Zoom. But I do recommend you get your voices heard. I anticipate they will have many people lined up to speak. And so the community, you want to be heard.
And then have you heard how they're going to, how many people are going to be limited to each unit? I mean, it might be 2 bedrooms, but they could have 14 or 15 people in a unit.
The current conditions do not limit the number of occupancy. That'll have to be done by the nonprofit that's monitoring and identifying the low income and farm worker. So at the present time, there's no condition that specifically limits it.
Yeah, and this really isn't agendized on the MAC right now. You did have it on your agenda before. So I'm just bringing this up to say, hey, there's a meeting, go to it, or send your comments there. I don't mean to cut you off, but it isn't an agenda item.
Well, I think it's
in that regard.
From your last
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
Continue with the Caltrans update.
Yes, you were going to talk about the meeting.
Oh, I had a meeting with Caltrans, and this was just based on a concern that was brought to our attention from a constituent about safety from turning out of the Hagel primetime area onto Somis Road and parking along the roadway. This was brought a while ago. They had scheduled several studies to look at it, but COVID hit. And so then they didn't want to do them right away because they were waiting for traffic to go back to normal because they knew that their counts would be low because of COVID. But COVID just lasted longer than we expected. So they did do the traffic count. Of course, it came up low. So they don't have the required number to put in a signal, but they are recommending doing another traffic study or another count in the fall, hopefully again when the numbers do go back to normal. But regarding the complaint that there's parking along the roadway, Caltrans will be putting in no parking signs along on their easement along the road, so that they will prevent any large trucks from parking on there. One other thing that was not within the study purview, but they did notice, was that there were signs. They're actually Hagel primetime signs right at their entrance, and they noticed they were pretty far out. And so as a truck is exiting, they kind of have to encroach into the westbound lane in order for them to avoid hitting the sign, because these are large trucks. So they did notice that that was an issue, but it's not in their right of way. So, you know, they were just saying, you know, it would have to be actually prime time that chooses to move their signs back or out, so that it provides their trucks a little bit better vision, so that they don't have to go out into the lane. So that's something that we, you know, we could always work with Hagel Lumber and Primetime on. So those were the things that, in a nutshell, that they had talked about.
A turn pocket there would be nice too.
Well, yeah, it was exactly. So it was this light or a turn pocket, but because the numbers were low, however, they did say, should the farm worker housing project happen, they did put that as a requirement, a turn pocket. So
A turn pocket there.
There was one into the development, and we remember back from when
they were about a half mile down the road.
Yeah, so a turn pocket and a signal there. So
no signal. No signals proposed.
Not at the moment. Again, they're not there because the numbers were low, but they're gonna look at it again, because again, COVID numbers, they don't know how true those numbers are. I mean, they've had this since the beginning of last year. They were like, it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back, but all right.
Again, thank you. Moving on our agenda, any council comments on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comments. Are there anybody that wants public comments? Don't see any. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything for future agenda items?
Well, I'll come back with the VCTC. I'll connect with Darren Kettle regarding bringing them back on the freight corridor study.
Can we just leave the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can we leave the farm worker house just as an ongoing agenda item for updates?
Certainly.
Not a bad idea.
Okay,
It's a good idea.
I've added it.
Okay.
All right. All right. At this point in time, I'd recommend a motion to adjourn.
Great.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All right, Bob,
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Jack.
Nice seeing you.
Jack. Bye. Adjourn.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Pat, before you go,
Stay healthy, folks.
I will. Pat, wait, before you go, I
Yes.
sent you an email with Lieutenant Key's email address. He wanted you to email him some info on that project or whatever with the crane, so he can look into it for you.
I'll do that. I'll just find the environmental review, so no problem.
Something with the.
It may take a day or two before he gets it.
Okay.
It'll be a day or two.
Okay. Is this the rehabilitation project? You were cutting in and out. So was it the rehabilitation project you were talking about?
No, the Caltrans is concerned that the slope next to the railroad tracks is sloughing down closer to the railroad.
Okay.
They do not want slope failure when they have trains that go back and forth all the time.
Oh, okay.
So they're planning on armoring or putting rock riprap. But in order to do that, they have to stop one lane. I don't know what time of day they're planning on doing that, because the environmental document only says that they'll provide a traffic control study.
All right, well, I just wanted you to be aware. I sent you his email address, so you can send that to him.
It was my understanding that they were going to put riprap in that ditch on the north side of 118, and they were going to do some abutment work on the south side of 118, like a wall or something up from the railroad tracks also.
They're actually, yes, they're doing work on both sides.
Right.
They're doing more work